Work is meant to feed a family. For Marlene, it starves them. 3 months at the counter, 12 hours a day, not a single paycheck, not one coin for the overtime she bleeds into the floor. Her lunchbox carries only a crust of bread, a bruised apple. She eats slowly as if stretching minutes could create more food. Shoes split wide soles, thin as paper. At home, her husband's prescription sits torn in half. The dosage cut the way hope is cut, divided, diminished, dying. The phone trembles in her hand. A child's voice whispers through Mama, "What's for dinner?" The question should be simple. Here it is, a blade. Work was supposed to bring dignity. Instead, it delivers hunger, silence, and fear. And in this place, fear is cheaper than fairness. Marlene's voice is soft, but the weight in it is unmistakable as she introduces the new man. She forces a smile, the kind that flickers at the edge of exhaustion but refuses to disappear. Her kindness lingers even where strength has drained away. The lunchbox at her side has become a signature, more than a meal. Cold rice, stale bread, a bruised apple, a feast of poverty carried day after day. She moves as if her body has memorized fatigue, yet she still explains tasks, patiently hiding the tremor in her tone. Her hands tell more truth than her words. Skin-cracked veins raised like cords pulled too tight, fingertips marked by labor, too long, unpaid. The quiet gesture of covering her wrist betrays another secret: her husband's medicine rationed and torn into halves, a battle she conceals behind tired eyes. To the others, she is ordinary. To the one listening closely, she is a quiet monument to survival. Then Inns shuffles forward. His back curves under invisible weight, shoulders bent as though the years themselves have pressed him down. Hair-thinned, silvered, his body carries the ache of age even before he speaks. His hands tremble as he lifts a box, the carton slipping from his grip and striking the floor with a dull thud. For a moment, silence. His cheeks flush red, shame rising faster than words could cover. He forces a laugh, brittle, trying to disguise the fracture in his dignity. No one steps forward. No one helps. The air holds steady, thick with complicity. Each worker buries their gaze in the ground, rehearsed in the art of silence. It is not indifference, but fear, and fear has trained them well. From the corner, Silas glances at him, lips curling into a half-smile, not of amusement, but of contempt. That fleeting sneer weighs heavier than the box itself, crushing Inns with a humiliation deeper than exhaustion. The air shifts when Silas walks in. His stride cuts through the room, arrogance radiating like a scent. Words slice from his mouth, sharp and deliberate, each command designed not just to instruct but to wound. Faster. No excuses. Do it again. His voice doesn't rise to shout. It doesn't need to. Each syllable carries the blade's edge precise enough to remind them who holds power here. Around him, heads lower. Eyes dart away as if direct contact could invite disaster. Shoulders bend, spines curl, bodies fold into the posture of submission. Resistance does not even spark, it has been crushed too many times before. No challenge meets him, no word returns. Only silence. And silence here has its own gravity, pulling everyone down into obedience. The room breathes fear. It is the cheapest currency, and Silas spends it lavishly. He enters with a uniform too large for his frame, the fabric sagging as if it belonged to someone else entirely. A plastic name tag clings to his chest, borrowed, invented a shield more than an identity. He stumbles slightly when handed a broom, feigning clumsiness, masking power beneath awkwardness. Around him, no one pauses. They glance once, then look away, uninterested, unimpressed. He becomes invisible with startling ease. In a world where weakness marks you as disposable, invisibility is protection. The paradox burns quietly. This is Harlan West, heir and owner, reduced by disguise to the bottom rung of his own empire. Numbers once bowed to him, but here he blends into silence, dismissed like air. His new identity gives him what wealth never could: the chance to be unseen, to be forgotten, to hear truth without filter. And in that invisibility he begins to see everything. Marlene leans close enough that her breath brushes the edge of his ear. Her words are not instruction, but warning. Be careful. Silas doesn't like questions. The glance she throws around the room speaks louder than her voice. Her eyes flick left, flick right, searching corners as if danger could step from the shadows at any moment. It is not paranoia, but training. Every gesture carries the habit of fear. Harlan only nods, saying nothing. Silence wraps him like a second disguise. Around them, quiet thickens, pressing against ribs, slowing the breath. The store hums with activity, but beneath the surface lies something heavier. Obedience polished into reflex. Fear has settled into this place like dust coating everything it touches. It clings to Marlene's lowered shoulders, to Inz's trembling hands, to the way voices drop mid-sentence when footsteps approach. It is not shouted, it is not ordered, it simply rules. And Harlan, buried in a role meant to erase him, feels its weight most of all. Later in the pause between tasks, Marlene bends close again. Her tone is flat, stripped of hope. Overtime never comes. We call them ghost hours. The words sink heavier than complaint. Ghosts are things unseen, things erased. Every shift she names that way becomes another theft, too casual to protest. Each vanished hour is proof not of mistake, but of intent. Harlan raises his brows, feigning surprise, but keeps his silence. He knows if he speaks too much, he'll betray himself. So he listens, lets the phrase echo inside him. Ghost hours, time, worked time, stolen time, buried. She shrugs, as if it were normal. To her, to all of them, injustice is routine woven into daily rhythm. Justice is not denied here, it is myth whispered like rumor laughed off before it can grow teeth. What shocks him is not the theft itself, but how ordinary it has become. Inz reaches into his pocket, pulling out a slip of paper so worn it looks like it might dissolve between his fingers. He places it quietly in Marlene's hand. The paper trembles. Edges frayed, words faded almost to dust. A prescription, fragile proof of illness. Marlene whispers, almost ashamed. My husband takes half a dose. We cut the pills in two. The apology in her tone feels heavier than the illness itself, as if poverty were her fault to confess. Harlan glances sideways. His chest tightens. Numbers never told him this story. Medicine rationed like crumbs, health sliced into fractions. The air grows still. No one comments, no one breathes too loudly. The silence does not comfort, it suffocates. The torn slip in her hands is more than paper. It is a mirror of their lives, divided, diminished, breaking under pressure. For the first time, he feels the collapse of dignity not as concept, but as wound. The hush does not last. Silas storms into view, voice sharp as a lash. No time for chatter here. The words cut quick and final. Conversations collapse instantly. Heads lower. The fragile thread of humanity that had surfaced vanishes in a blink. Marlene drops her gaze to the floor, shoulders folding inward as if bracing for a blow. The prescription slip disappears into her pocket, shame wrapped in silence. Harlan lowers his head, too, mimicking obedience, though heat builds in his chest. To break character now would betray everything. Yet the impulse claws at him to stand, to speak, to tear through the silence with truth. The room belongs to Silas. His authority is not questioned, it does not need to be. Fear is the currency here, and with a single outburst he collects his due. What lingers is not the sound of his command, but the weight of submission it forces. Harlan keeps his head bowed, but his eyes move. They catch the tremor in Marlene's hands, veins raised like dry riverbeds. They notice Inz's eyes rimmed red, heavy with sleepless nights. They fall on the cold lunchbox resting by the counter, its contents untouched, an emblem of hunger more eloquent than words. Each detail etches itself into him. They are not statistics. They are scars. He memorizes them the way a man memorizes debts he intends to settle. Quiet, deliberate, relentless. For years he believed profit margins told the truth of his stores. But standing here he sees truth written in bent backs, in swallowed words, in meals uneaten. Numbers were sterile. Reality bleeds. He says nothing. He only watches. Yet in that watching something changes. His silence is no longer disguise, it is burden. And the weight of it grows heavier with every stolen hour he witnesses. Marlene steps forward, a folded slip of paper trembling in her hand. Each line on it is written carefully, hours, tallied weeks, stretching long into exhaustion. She holds it like proof of her existence, fragile but undeniable. Silas takes it without pause. His eyes scan for less than a breath before his lips curl into a sneer. No questions, no explanation. With a flick of his wrist, the paper tears. He lets the fragments drift down as if overtime itself were a foolish myth. Overtime doesn't exist here. The words land like a verdict. The room stills. For Marlene, it is not just numbers erased, but nights, stolen meals, vanished medicine withheld. For the others, it is a reminder proof means nothing when power laughs in its face. Justice is not denied quietly. Here it is, torn in half, dropped to the floor, and trampled. Marlene bends to the ground. Her knees creak as she gathers the ruined slip, smoothing it with trembling fingers as though paper could remember what men choose to forget. Her eyes glisten, but no tear falls. She knows tears change nothing. Around her, the others glance from the corners of their eyes, then quickly lower their heads again. It is not sympathy they lack, but courage. Silence is safer than defiance, and safety has been drilled into them deeper than hope. Harlan watches his face calm but his chest tightening. Each gesture carves itself into him, her hunched shoulders, her shaking hands, her quiet defeat. The sight is not spectacle, it is ritual. Humiliation has become the rhythm of their days, repeated until even dignity seems like a luxury. And in that routine, the cruelty cuts sharper. What is unbearable is not the act itself, but how ordinary it has become. The sound of a box slipping breaks the silence. Inz's hands, unsteady with age, fail him. The carton strikes the ground with a hollow thud. Laughter slices through the air. Silas smirks, his voice rising just enough to pierce every corner. Useless old man. A ripple follows. Customers nearby chuckle nervously, joining the cruelty as though participation absolves them. The humiliation multiplies, echoing louder than the fall of the box itself. Inz's cheeks flame red. He bends, fumbling to lift the carton, saying nothing, offering no defense. Silence is his only armor, and it is paper-thin. Harlan clenches his jaw. The disguise holds but barely. His teeth grind with words unsaid. Fury swallowed back into silence. The room pretends to return to work, but the insult hangs vibrating in every corner. It is not only Inz who has been stripped bare, it is everyone who has ever been told they are replaceable, and the silence that follows feels more dangerous than the insult itself. A young worker steps forward, hands trembling as if the request itself were forbidden. His voice wavers, but he forces it out. "Could I have an advance? Just enough for rent." For a heartbeat, the room holds its breath. The request is modest, desperate, the kind of plea that should meet compassion. Instead, Silas exhales a sharp, mocking laugh, a sound colder than refusal. "Do the work first, then ask. That's how it works here." The words slam down, heavier than chains. The boy drops his gaze, shame cutting deeper than hunger. A tear slips quick and silent, carving down his cheek. No one moves. No one intervenes. They look away, each worker hiding behind practiced silence. Mercy has no place here. Even hope is treated as weakness. Harlan's fist tightens at his side. He swallows the impulse to speak, but fury coils inside him. Here is the paradox: labor is meant to sustain life, yet those who give it are denied the right to live. Later, Marlene scribbles her hours onto a fresh scrap of paper. The act is quiet, almost sacred, a rebellion written in ink. Each number is proof that she exists beyond silence. But Silas's shadow falls over her. His hand shoots out, ripping the slip from her grasp. He crumples it with relish, the sound sharp, final. He lets the ball of paper fall at her feet, smirking. "You think this will save you? Dream on." Her face burns, but she says nothing. The others turn away, the silence heavier than the insult itself. Humiliation spreads like smoke. Everyone breathes it. Everyone chokes on it. Yet no one resists. Harlan stands still, but his eyes darken. Each act of cruelty is fuel, and Silas has just thrown another log onto the fire. Justice is not merely denied here. It is mocked, crumpled, and discarded like trash. When the break comes, Marlene opens her lunchbox with trembling hands. Cold rice, stiff bread food meant to quiet hunger, not to nourish. She lifts a spoon, ready for a rare moment of relief. Then Silas's hand snatches the timesheet from her table. His voice cuts through the small silence. "Eat later. Work's not finished." The spoon clatters back into the box. Rice untouched, the faint scent of food lingers, mocking the stomach it was meant to fill. Marlene snaps the lid shut, rises, and returns to the counter. Her meal remains behind a ghost of comfort denied. For her, even eating is rebellion, and rebellion is forbidden. Harlan watches every detail, the way her eyes avoid contact, the way her body obeys against its will. Food, the simplest dignity, has been stripped away. And in that theft he sees not discipline, but cruelty laid bare. Inz leans against a stack of crates, his breath shallow, his face pale with weariness. His voice comes low, almost as if confession were a sin. Two shifts back to back, and over time always disappears. The words do not rise with anger. They sink with resignation. His tone carries no fight, only acceptance, as though injustice were gravity, inevitable, inescapable. Harlan listens, gaze lowered, a shadow crossing his expression. Outwardly, still inwardly, he burns. He measures each syllable like a tally of debts unpaid, each one a blade pressed deeper into silence. Around them, no one speaks. The air itself grows heavy, thick with the weight of defeat. Their silence does not echo, it suffocates. For In's stolen time is no longer a shock. It is expectation. For Harlan, hearing it spoken aloud shatters the illusion that injustice is rare. Here, resignation is the rule and hope the exception, and that quiet acceptance sears him more than rage ever could. In the lull of shifting boxes, a voice slips out, barely audible, union. The word hangs for less than a breath before another voice cuts through sharp with terror. Shut up. You want us all fired? The effect is instant. Conversations collapse. Even breathing sounds too loud. Heads lower, eyes dart. The silence grows violent. The single word lingers dangerous, not because of what it promises, but because of the punishment it invites. Salvation and destruction wrapped in the same syllables. No one dares repeat it. The sound dies, smothered before it can grow teeth. Yet fear does not fade, it tightens, coiling through every corner of the room. Harlan feels the tension bite. He knows what unions mean, fairness, protection, voice, but here the very thought has been outlawed. In that suffocated silence, one truth becomes undeniable. Even hope has been declared contraband. Later, Silas's eyes settle on a young worker moving too slowly. His words lash out cruel and casual. Keep it up, and you'll end up like the old man, useless. The insult slices clean through the room. Laughter follows, thin and nervous, but enough to sting. The boy stiffens, cheeks burning red. He drops his gaze to the floor, hiding the shame that climbs his throat. No words rise in his defense. Silence swallows them whole before they can form. Around him, co-workers avert their eyes, pretending not to hear. Avoidance becomes complicity. To acknowledge cruelty is to risk joining its target. Inns himself lowers his head, absorbing the insult without protest. His silence is not agreement, it is survival. Harlan's jaw clenches. Fury presses against the mask of obedience, but he swallows it once more. The wound is not confined to one man. It stretches across generations, binding young and old alike in the same cycle of humiliation. And still, no one speaks. That night, Marlene walks through the door, her body heavy with exhaustion. Before she can set down her bag, a small voice rises from the shadows. "Mama, what's for dinner?" The question halts her breath. Words fail. Her mouth opens, but no answer comes. Her son's stomach growls, a hollow rumble that fills the room louder than any shout. He looks at her with innocent expectation, not yet old enough to know that hunger can be stronger than love. Marlene pulls him into her arms, pressing his face against her chest, hiding the tears that escape her eyes. She rocks him gently as if movement could replace the meal she cannot give. The silence between them is louder than words. The sound of hunger becomes a drumbeat, steady, merciless, echoing through the walls of the house. The cruelty is no longer confined to the store. It has followed her home, poisoning the air of her family. Back at the store, Marlene's hands tremble as she unfolds a piece of paper worn thin from too much handling. The edges curl, the ink has faded, but the meaning remains a prescription, almost illegible, a symbol of desperation. Her voice comes low, nearly breaking. "Just a few hundred. Enough for my husband's medicine." The plea is not loud. It is softer than a whisper, yet it pierces deeper than any scream. Harlan watches, and for the first time his chest aches with guilt. He has spent years surrounded by wealth, insulated by numbers, while here one missing paycheck divides life from death. It is no longer an observation. It is a wound he feels himself. The paper quivers in her hand, but it is his heart that bears the weight. He looks away, but the image has already carved itself into him. Later, Inns leans close, his voice gravelly worn down by years of defeat. "Stay quiet. If you want to keep your job," the words are not advice, they are a sentence. Survival is no longer about strength or skill, but about silence. Around them, others nod almost imperceptibly, heads lowered, shoulders bent. No one argues. No one dares. The law here is not written on paper. It is carved into their throats, binding them from within. Harlan nods back faintly, though his eyes harden. Every second he stays quiet, he feels the weight of complicity pressing deeper into him. The paradox twists sharp silence was supposed to protect, but here it becomes the very chain that enslaves them, and with each unspoken word he feels himself dragged into the same cage. Silas slams the schedule down pages, scattering like broken promises. His voice slices through the room, night shift. No arguments. The order is not a request. It is a command delivered with the weight of inevitability. Marlene, already 12 hours deep into her day, blinks against the exhaustion. Her shoulders sag, but her lips form only one answer, a silent nod. She does not resist. Resistance is not survival here. Around them, no one steps forward. Eyes stay lowered, hands frozen mid-task, the silence acting as armor. To speak would be to invite ruin. To stay quiet is to endure. Harlan watches every muscle taut. His disguise demands stillness, but his chest tightens, his heart straining against the role he plays. What he sees is not work. It is servitude. And the cruelty is sharper because it masquerades as normal. In the dimness of the stockroom, Marlene sinks to the floor. Her hands cover her face, shoulders trembling with each unsteady breath. The words escape her lips, weak and final. "I can't do this anymore." The room holds its breath. No clatter, no whispers, no sound except the ragged tremor of her voice. It is not a cry for help. It is surrender. Her body folds inward as though her very spirit has caved under the weight of endless nights and empty paychecks. She is not fighting the system anymore. She is collapsing beneath it. Harlan stands nearby, his eyes fixed on her. Something inside him shifts sharp and irrevocable. What was once quiet observation begins to transform into grief, and grief into rage. This is no longer about wages stolen. It is a soul breaking in real time, and he cannot unsee it. Inns lifts his head, eyes locking onto Harlan's. No words leave his lips. He does not need them. The look itself carries the plea, "Do you see us? Do you understand?" The silence between them is louder than any speech. Inns's gaze is raw, stripped bare of pride, asking for recognition, for witness, for anything beyond the void. Harlan feels the question pierce straight into him. His jaw tightens, his chest clenches. He gives a small nod, so slight it could be missed, but heavy with meaning. Inside, a vow takes shape. No longer silent witness, no longer patient disguise. He cannot remain a bystander. Every insult, every humiliation, every broken spirit has carved its place inside him. And in that single exchange of eyes, he crosses a line. Harlan West is no longer just watching. He is preparing to act. Silas slams his fist against the counterface, twisted with contempt. His voice tears through the room like steel scraping bone. "If you can't do the job, then get out." The command shatters what little air is left. Marlene stiffens her body, trembling as though the floor itself had turned hostile. Around her, the workers freeze, arms, half-raised eyes locked on the ground, breath caught in throats. Fear settles like cement, sealing every limb in place. The silence that follows is suffocating. No one dares to blink, let alone speak. For years, this has been the rhythm, insult to submission, silence. But this time, something shifts. Slowly, deliberately, Harlan lifts his head. His eyes, once lowered in disguise, rise with the weight of judgment. The room tightens around that single gesture. For the first time, fear begins to move not away from Silas, but toward him. The room hangs on the edge of collapse when Harlan speaks. His voice is low, steady, each word weighted like iron. "I'm not the new hire." The air stiffens. His gaze sharpens, cutting through the stillness. "I am Harlan West, owner of this place." The words roll heavy, undeniable. Every head lifts. Every pair of eyes turns. The silence deepens so thick it could break under its own weight. For weeks they had looked past him, dismissed him, ignored him. Now the disguise falls and the ground shifts beneath their feet. Marlene's breath catches. Inns grips the counter. Even the youngest workers stare, mouths slightly open as though witnessing the impossible. The truth has landed. The mask is gone. The storm has begun. Silas staggers back, color draining from his face. His lips twitch, stuttering sounds that collapse before they form. No, it can't be. The arrogance that once filled the room vanishes. In its place is a man, stripped bare, trembling before the authority he thought he owned. The workers exchange glances, hesitant, wide-eyed, unbelieving. For the first time, they are seeing their tormentor reduced to something smaller than themselves. Marlene stares, disbelief etched into every line of her face. Inz's eyes blur, tears sliding down as if years of silence have finally found release. The image is stark, undeniable, the tyrant brought low, the powerless suddenly watching power collapse. And in that reversal, a spark ignites hope, no longer whispered but glimpsed openly for the first time. Harlan's voice cuts the silence. Calm, unshaken, but weighted like a strike of iron. 3 months, 12 hours a day, 46 hours of overtime. Where is the money? Each phrase lands like a gavel, short, unbroken, undeniable. The words are not loud, but their weight presses against every chest in the room. The workers hold their breath. No one shifts, no one whispers. All eyes lock on Silas. For the first time, the bully cannot summon a reply. His mouth opens, closes, but nothing comes. The certainty that once defined him collapses. Harlan does not need volume to command. Numbers themselves are the weapon, clean, sharp, impossible to refute. In that moment, the balance changes. Fear is no longer theirs to carry. It belongs to him. Harlan steps closer, his words sharper, his tone colder. You stole meals. You stole medicine. You stole breath itself. Each accusation falls like a blade slicing through the air, leaving no room for denial. The workers shudder, their bodies flinching at the truth finally spoken aloud. It is not exaggeration, it is recognition of their daily wounds, each one counted and laid bare. Silas's skin glistens with sweat. His hands twitch at his sides. For the first time, there is no excuse to reach, for no defense to twist. The silence around him turns hostile, a verdict delivered without jury. The crime is no longer invisible. It has been named, carved into memory with words that cannot be taken back. And naming it makes it real. Harlan turns to Inz, his gaze steady, his words deliberate. He is not old. He is experience. He is the living history of this store. The sentence lands differently, gentler, lifting rather than crushing. For a moment, silence holds, but it is no longer suffocating. It is reverent. Inz's eyes shine wet, his throat tightening with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. He bows his head, unable to speak, the weight of years finally acknowledged. Around him, other workers lower their gazes, but this time tears fall not from shame, but from recognition. Their silence carries respect. Silas stands mute, stripped not only of power but of voice. Dignity long buried beneath humiliation begins to surface, not as triumph, but as quiet truth reclaimed. And in that moment, the store feels different, as if a wound has been seen for the first time. Harlan does not raise his voice. He does not need to. His gaze fixes on Silas, unblinking, unshaken. You're fired, effective immediately. The words strike harder than any shout. They carry no drama, only certainty, an end carved in stone. The room falls still. Not a chair moves, not a breath stirs. Every worker feels the weight of the verdict, a truth they never thought they would hear. Silas stumbles where he stands. His hands tremble, his skin drains pale. For years he wielded fear like a weapon, and now, stripped of it, he is small, almost pitiful. Power collapses not with noise, but with silence. And in that silence, his reign ends. Silas stands rigid, his eyes darting, searching for escape. He scans the faces around him, hunting for submission, for someone to flinch, someone to bend. But no one does. The workers meet his gaze openly, steadily. Not one head lowers, not one shoulder bows. The fear he fed on has drained away, leaving him starved of control. The same silence that once protected him now condemns him. It is no longer obedience, it is defiance. He is alone, utterly, absolutely. The man who once filled every corner with his voice now shrinks beneath the quiet judgment of those he oppressed. His authority does not fade. It vanishes, swallowed whole in the eyes of those who will never fear him again. Harlan turns from the fallen tyrant to Marlene. He holds out an envelope, thick, heavy, placed firmly into her trembling hands. She unfolds it slowly. Crisp bills spill into view, brighter than anything she has touched in months. For a moment, she cannot breathe. Her lips quiver. Then the tears come sliding down onto the money, staining it, not with sorrow, but with relief. For the first time, her tears taste different. They are not bitter. They are release. The workers watch, eyes wide, throats tight. Their silence now is not fear, but reverence. In Marlene's shaking hands, they see their own dignity restored. For once, the store is not filled with commands. It is filled with something rarer, hope made visible. Harlan reaches again into his case, drawing out a second envelope heavier than the first. He places it firmly into Marlene's hands. His words are steady cold against exploitation, yet warm against her wounds. This is not charity. This is recognition. The room stills. For a heartbeat, no one moves. The envelope thick with wages long denied feels heavier than money it is dignity counted and restored. Marlene clutches it to her chest, her body trembling as if she is holding her own worth for the first time in years. The silence shifts. It is no longer fear. It is reverence, hushed and warm, spreading across every face. What was once humiliation now blooms as quiet affirmation they matter. Harlan turns toward Inns. His gaze does not pity, it honors. Every line on your hands is proof of the years you've carried this store. The words strike like light breaking into shadow. Inns bows his head, tears spilling his calloused hands trembling as he covers his face. For decades his labor was dismissed as weakness. Now it is named as strength. Around him, younger workers watch in awe. Their eyes no longer see an old man bent by time. They see endurance sacrifice the living memory of their toil. Respect, long starved, finally returns. And it lands not in applause but in silence, thick with gratitude. Harlan's eyes sweep the room, his voice carrying not command but conviction. No one should choose between medicine and food. No one should work 12 hours and go home empty-handed. No one should lose dignity to fear. The words strike deeper than any order ever spoken here. They echo in marrow, in memory, in silence, long held by trembling throats. Faces lift, eyes brighten, shoulders straighten. The workers absorb the truth not as hope, but as a promise. Justice is no longer abstract. It is alive, standing before them, naming their pain and denying its right to continue. And for the first time they begin to believe tomorrow can be different. Marlene's tears fall freely, but they are no longer bitter. They flow like release washing years of silence from her chest. "I thought we had been forgotten," she whispers the words, trembling yet alive. Inns nods his old eyes, glistening, a single tear carving its way down the lines of his face. A lifetime of endurance finally breaks into vulnerability. The younger workers bite their lips, eyes, red shoulders shaking as they let go of fear and let grief surface. The room fills with sobs, soft, unashamed. Pain, shared, becomes lighter. No one hides, no one apologizes. What once was despair now becomes communion. A collective wound has opened, but instead of bleeding, it begins to heal. For the first time, tears carry dignity. The room grows quiet again, but it is a different silence. No longer heavy, no longer choking. It tastes sweet, as though fear has finally loosened its grip. Harlan speaks plainly. Money builds a store. People give it soul. Forget that, and we lose everything. The words etch themselves into the walls, into memory, into marrow. They do not pass like sound. They stay carved deep, immovable. The workers lift their heads. Their eyes no longer carry submission but recognition. What was once a workplace of chains has in this moment become a place of truth. And truth spoken aloud lingers longer than power ever could. Justice does not begin in courts or parliaments. It begins in how we treat one another, where we work, where we live, where dignity is tested. A stolen wage is more than money lost, it is food, medicine, breath. And when dignity is denied, humanity itself is diminished. To honor work is to honor life. Forget that, and everything else collapses. Thank you for listening to this story. If it touched you, subscribe and let justice be heard.